in 370 to 379, another Christian, Bishop Basil, who's now Saint Basil. If you're Catholic, you know who that is. But Bishop Basil was so inspired by the Christians a century before that in 368 and 369, Bishop Basil's in this. He's not a bishop at this point, but he's one of the leaders of the church. That there's a massive plague and famine that happens around Caesarea, the city that he's a part of, and he takes on, and he gets so inspired, and he said, hey, Christians have done this before, and in the midst of this much trauma, 100 years ago, these guys were so inspiring. He starts preaching and starts telling stories of the amazing love that Cyprian and all these the Christians did a century before. And he's like, we got to do the same. And so they started taking in and feeding and caring for the poor and the sick and doing all this kind of stuff to such a degree, get this, to such a degree that the city of Caesarea says, we can't house the number of people that are coming to us for help. We're going to set up another city outside of our city that that all the sick and the poor and the hungry and the starving, they can come to there. And they set up another city outside of Caesarea called the Basilica, and had to set up another city. Can you imagine this? Outside of Lethbridge, outside of Tabor, had to set up a suburb, because so many people were coming to the church, to the Christians, for help. And in this process of all this amazing stuff, Basil has a God-inspired moment and sets up what we would now know as the very first hospital. Under one roof, sets up, has a number of doctors, has a number of people coming in, doctors, nurses, and sets up the first hospital. And out of that, the church got inspired by that they started attaching across the world, wherever there was a church or monastery, there was anything, they started setting up hospitals across, and the points where multiple doctors come and care for the sick en masse. And this is amazing. And then you know what else got birthed out of that? They're like, well, we need more doctors, we need more nurses, we need to train them to be able to do this. And so they set up, beside these hospitals, they set up what we now know as universities. The church. Come on. Isn't that amazing? And did you know, come on, did you know? Look at this. John Dixon said this in his book. He says, 10 out of 10 of the top hospitals in the United States began with medical doctors who were trained by Christian universities. And 9 out of 10 had Christian founders who declared their Christian faith as the motive for establishing hospitals. Come on. Many hospitals today, you ever notice this? You ever notice that many hospitals have Christian names? Saint, right? Like they have Christian names. You don't see hospitals being named after Karl Marx, Confucius, Muhammad. Come on. You don't see. Why? Because they were started by, like this is amazing, isn't it? The impact that the church has had. You take Christians and Jesus out of the equation, this world is totally different.